This is a case study on the effects of deployments and injuries on military families and if we are doing enough for them by Robert P. McAvay, Texas State graduate student. Every day, United States military members are being deployed to places like Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Syria. These deployments typically last from 6 months to 1 year in length. Unfortunately, not all our military are coming back safe and sound from combat situations. Some are coming back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, traumatic brain injuries, and loss of limbs. Spouses of service members ensure the family is intact while the military member is deployed. Several spouses must also be the caregiver in the event the military spouse returns with combat injuries. The federal government does an outstanding job taking care of our military when they are deployed, and in the event they are injured in combat situations. The question remains if the spouse of that service member is also taken care of in the same regard. The researcher has asked this question to the willing participants of the study. The answers may or may not surprise you. As stated earlier, every day more and more servicemen and women are returning from extensive and numerous deployments. In 2005, the Veterans Administration reported that 60% of veterans are returning with some type of traumatic brain injury, and in many cases, this is not noticed for several years. In 2008, the Department of Defense reported that 29,300 military members have been injured in combat while serving in Iraq. We can expect this number to grow with conflicts taking place in both Afghanistan and now in Syria. The federal government offers several programs such as the Caregivers and Veterans Omnibus Health Service Act of 2010. This program provides a stipend to spouses that are caregivers of injured veterans to allow them to take care of their loved one 100% of the time without having to hold a job outside of the home. Other programs to the military offer a stipend program to family members to help them pay for hotel and food expenses while the military member is being cared for in a military hospital. Other programs offered are through chaplain services on base and psychiatric and family counseling to both military, veterans, and their families. The issue that was found during this research was the participating members either did not know what was readily available or felt uncomfortable using those services due to confidentiality concerns. Their thoughts were, if I tell counselors my issues on the military base, that there could be a chance that this information is leaked to my spouse's command and could jeopardize their careers. A total of 3 spouses were found to be willing participants for this study. The participants were found using a source at the Department of Veterans Affairs and through social media links such as Facebook and LinkedIn. The source at the Department of Veterans Affairs did not prove very successful, and only 1 participant was found in a span of 3 weeks. The use of social media was more successful, with the finding 2 participants in a week span. Flyers were distributed via the contact at the Department of Veterans Affairs and also through social media. This allowed the willing participants to contact the researcher only if they were interested. This allowed the researcher only to be contacted by willing members and others to remain confidential. Flyers provided what the study consisted of and what criteria the participants had to fall in order to be part of the study. The flyer had all the information needed a participant to contact the researcher if they were interested or had further questions about the study. Once a participant was identified as meeting the requirements of the study, the researcher would send out the necessary paperwork for the participants to be part of the study. A date and time that was convenient with the participant was arranged for to the study to commence. The interview consisted of 10 questions. 8 of the questions were using a Likert scale from 1 to 5. 1 was when someone strongly disagreed, and 5 was used when the participant strongly agreed. Each Likert scale question was asked. The researcher would have a follow-up question to the participants to ask them why they gave the question that particular scale. There was also 2 open-ended questions that were asked of the participants. Each interview took 1 to 2 hours to take place. In some cases, the researcher went back to the participant for further explanation if there were any questions. The same set of questions were asked to all 3 participants. All questions were analyzed to see if there were any similar responses. All Likert scale questions were also analyzed, finding a minimum, maximum, and a mean. During the interview with Spouse 1, the spouse felt that with the stipends and pay from the Department of Veterans Affairs was sufficient and allowed them to pay their bills. The spouse did mention that when dealing with government agencies, they did not seem to provide a lot of help and sent them in different directions to find answers. The counseling that was attended did not seem to help and did not seem to help them emotionally. One point the participant did make was that the counselors did not seem to be specialized when dealing with military families and their special situations. Also, when dealing with government agencies, that those agencies wanted to deal with the military member or veteran and did not want to deal with the spouse. On a positive note, the participant felt that the child care services offered by the military were excellent and that those personnel truly understood the situations that spouses go through every day. In regards to Spouse 2, this participant felt that military members should receive higher compensation than their civilian counterparts due to the nature and dangers of the job. The participant also felt that communication was poor from the military base and other government agencies, that information to help them cope with stress in situations was not provided unless they went and personally asked for it. Their thoughts were this should be provided in some type of briefing. Another issue that was brought up was of privacy concerns. The participant did not feel comfortable talking to counselors to possible repercussions to their military spouse and from their commands. Also had a feeling that government agencies did not want to deal with them. On a positive note, this participant also stated that the child care development centers that the military provided were great. Spouse 3 felt that the compensation provided was sufficient. The participant did mention about a lack of trust when dealing with government agencies. Also, they mentioned, as the other participants mentioned, that the counselors provided by the government did not truly understand what military families deal with. When the participant decided to seek counseling from outside agencies, the feeling was they truly understood and took the time to really care. This participant also had the same consensus as the others that they were given the runaround when it came to trying to get information. Also, not given much guidance on what programs offered what. Also, counseling that was provided did not help them emotionally. The table shows the 8 Likert scale questions asked to each participant of the study. The table shows the minimum, maximum, and the mean. This table shows the similar comments used by all 3 participants of the study. The comment with the most events was no help. During the research, government agencies were not highly spoken of. All 3 participants felt that the agencies in most cases were not very helpful. The participants all mentioned that the government agencies should have some type of monitoring system to ensure their programs are working correctly. The research showed that the participants were all under a tremendous amount of stress dealing with the service member on deployment and were having to care for a veteran or service member with an injury or disability. One participant had to complain several times about what their spouse was dealing with and what the military spouse was on the verge of attempting suicide. Studies have shown that deployments are one of the most stressful parts of being with a military member. Schlommer reported that 85% of wives reported this. Ways to ensure a program are working are to periodically check to ensure the program is working by accomplishing surveys, questionnaires, and interviews of the people using the services. This allows the agency to see what is working well and is what not working well. Participants of the study complained that they felt their personal information was divulged to the military commands their spouses belonged to. One way to prevent this is to ensure HIPAA rules are enforced and all staff members in the counselor's office understands these regulations. Government agencies should have town hall sessions and invite spouses of military members and veterans to these. The town hall could provide information on what programs are offered and give guidance on what programs would be best for their situation. Thank you for taking the time to view this, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments. You may also provide comments by responding to the YouTube link. Thank you.